In the kingdom of Adara, a prosperous Hausa land with traditions passed down from ancestors, there was no greater joy than the birth of a royal child. King Abubakar and Queen Hadiza had prayed for years to have a child, and when Princess Aisha finally arrived, the whole kingdom celebrated. Beautiful beyond words, her skin was the color of smooth caramel, her hair dark and thick, and her eyes wide and full of curiosity. But there was one peculiarity about Aisha, something no one could have ever imagined. From the moment she was born, the baby girl had a problem. She farted. At first, the midwives thought it was just a simple issue of digestion, something that would pass. But Aisha's farts were louder than any newborn's cry. And worse, they smelled so bad that people in the next room would cover their noses in agony. The foul stench seemed unnatural, and as Aisha grew, the problem only worsened. As the years passed, Princess Aisha grew into an astonishingly beautiful young girl. Her looks captivated anyone who saw her. Her skin glowed in the sun. Her movements graceful like the flow of the river Kaduna. But wherever Aisha went, her terrible problem followed. The older she became, the louder and more frequent the farts. What's more, the smell had become unbearable to those around her. The people of Adara, once joyful at her birth, began to avoid her. Her farts were a daily nightmare. The market women, as they sold spices and grains, would often gossip about the princess in hushed tones. "Did you hear it today?" one would ask. "It rattled the windows." Another would reply, shaking her head. Aisha was the topic of almost every conversation, not for her beauty, but for her overwhelming curse. The villagers couldn't take the smell anymore, though no one dared to insult the royal family directly. The discomfort was obvious. A wise man from the village, named Malam Yusuf, came up with a solution for the people: face masks. He dipped the masks in a special concoction made from a sweet-smelling plant found deep in the nearby mountains. The masks became a necessary part of everyday life in Adara. Wherever Aisha went, people would quickly wear them, hiding their discomfort. Despite her curse, Princess Aisha remained blissfully unaware of the torment she caused others. She was immune to the smell and often wondered why people kept their distance. As she grew into a stunning young woman who once had been eager to win her hand, now stayed far away. Many admired her beauty from a distance, but none dared come close for fear of being overwhelmed by the stench. The royal family was heartbroken. They had hoped for a joyous life for their daughter, filled with love, suitors, and a future as a queen. But no man in the kingdom or in any neighboring land would even consider marrying Aisha. Her farts had become the most tragic and humiliating curse the royal family had ever endured. The king and queen grew more and more despondent as the years passed. Queen Hadiza, once full of hope and energy, fell into deep depression. Her heart could not bear the sight of her beautiful daughter living in isolation and shame. One day, after a particularly loud and smelly night, Queen Hadiza fell ill. Within weeks, her health deteriorated and she passed away. King Abubakar, devastated by the loss of his queen, grew increasingly withdrawn. He blamed himself for not finding a solution to Aisha's curse. It wasn't long before he too succumbed to grief and followed his wife to the grave. The kingdom mourned the loss of their beloved king and queen, but their sorrow for Princess Aisha's fate was even greater. Left to rule the kingdom alone, Princess Aisha was now of age and ready for marriage. The pressure on her was immense, as the future of Adara depended on her to produce an heir. With no suitors daring to approach her, it seemed impossible that Aisha would ever marry. One day, in a desperate attempt to break the curse, the royal advisors suggested seeking the wisdom of an ancient healer who lived in the northern hills. This healer, known as Baba Goni, was said to possess knowledge of ancient curses and remedies that could cure even the most bizarre ailments. Aisha, tired of living in isolation, agreed to make the long journey. Upon reaching Baba Goni's hut, they found the healer waiting outside, as if he had known of their arrival long before they did. He was an old man, bent with age, with piercing eyes that seemed to look right through Aisha. "The curse you carry is not a simple one," Baba Goni said, after hearing her story. "It was cast upon your family long before you were born, as punishment for the sins of your ancestors. To lift this curse, you must find something far more valuable than any treasure." Aisha was confused. "What must I do?" she asked. Baba Goni spoke cryptically, as was his way. "You must find the man who can stand before you and withstand your curse without fear, disgust or complaint. Only then will the curse be lifted." Aisha returned to Adara, pondering the healer's words. Find a man who could withstand her curse? Who would ever come close enough to try? But as time passed, the kingdom grew more desperate for her to marry, and so a proclamation was made. Any man who could endure the presence of Princess Aisha for a full night without complaint would win her hand in marriage and half of the kingdom's wealth. For months, many brave men came forward, but none could last more than a few hours. Some left in disgust, while others fled in terror, unable to cope with the endless barrage of loud, foul-smelling farts. The kingdom's hope began to fade. But then, one day, a mysterious stranger arrived at the palace. His name was Ibrahim, a tall, handsome man with a calm demeanor and eyes that seemed to hold secrets of its own. He claimed to have traveled from a distant land and said he had heard of the princess's challenge. "I will stay the night with the princess," he said boldly. The court, having seen many fail before, scoffed at his confidence, but Ibrahim remained unfazed. That night, Ibrahim sat in the princess's chamber, and as expected, the farts began. They were louder than ever, shaking the very walls of the palace, and the smell was almost unbearable. But Ibrahim sat still, his expression calm. Hours passed, and while the noise and stench intensified, Ibrahim didn't flinch. By morning, Ibrahim had survived the entire night, and Aisha's curse was broken. The stench was gone, and the people of Adara rejoiced, for their princess was finally free. But the true twist came later, when it was revealed that Ibrahim had a secret of his own. The healer, Baba Goni, had sent him, knowing that only someone with a deep understanding of magic could survive such a night. Ibrahim was not just an ordinary man. He too carried a strange power within him, one that allowed him to withstand the unbearable. The people of Adara never knew, but Ibrahim had been more than a suitor. He had been sent to save them all. As the kingdom of Adara erupted in celebration, Ibrahim's name quickly spread through the land. The man who had broken the curse was hailed as a hero, and the people believed that he had come to their kingdom by divine intervention. The loud farts that had once plagued the kingdom were now nothing but a distant memory, and Princess Aisha, freed from her curse, smiled for the first time in many years. But Aisha, in her heart, was not so quick to embrace her newfound freedom. While the villagers and court were blinded by joy, she couldn't shake a strange feeling about Ibrahim. Who was this man, truly? How had he endured what no one else could? Despite the fact that she had been cursed, she had always sensed when people were uncomfortable around her. Ibrahim, however, had been so calm, so unnerved. It seemed unnatural. Aisha confided her worries to her closest handmaiden, Halima, a woman who had served her since childhood. "It doesn't make sense, Halima," Aisha said as they walked through the palace garden. "No man could stand that smell, not even for a moment. How did Ibrahim do it?" Halima, ever the cautious one, leaned closer and whispered, "My princess, there are rumors about Ibrahim. People say he might not be what he seems." Aisha's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "They say he visited Baba Guni before he came to the palace," Halima whispered. "Some say the healer gave him a gift, a secret power, one that allowed him to survive the night." Aisha's heart pounded. Baba Guni had been the one to tell her how to break the curse. And now this mysterious man had connections to him as well. Something wasn't right. Determined to uncover the truth, Aisha decided to confront Ibrahim. She approached him in the quiet of the night while the palace slept and demanded answers. "Ibrahim," she began, standing tall before him, "you have saved me from a life of humiliation. But I need to know, how did you do it? How did you survive a night in my presence without flinching?" Ibrahim looked at her with a calm expression, but there was something unreadable in his eyes. He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Princess, I was sent to you for a reason," he said slowly. "But not just by chance." "What do you mean?" Aisha's voice was stern. "I met Baba Guni before I came here," Ibrahim admitted, his gaze unwavering. "He gave me something to protect me, a charm that shields me from any smell or discomfort." Aisha stepped back, her eyes widening in shock. "So you came here with a trick? You didn't face my curse like the others, you used magic?" "I did what I had to do," Ibrahim replied firmly. "I came to break your curse, and I succeeded. But Aisha, you must understand, Baba Guni didn't just send me here to save you. He sent me here because the curse runs deeper than you think." Aisha's heart raced as she tried to comprehend what Ibrahim was saying. "What do you mean the curse runs deeper?" Ibrahim sighed, his voice dropping a near whisper. "The curse was not just about your farts, Aisha. It was about your family's greed. Long ago, your ancestors made a deal with a powerful spirit for wealth and prosperity. In exchange, their descendants would bear the burden of a terrible curse. Your parents paid the price, and now you have been freed." "But at what cost?" Aisha asked, her voice trembling. "The curse may be lifted from you," Ibrahim said, "but it will not disappear. It must pass to another, as is the law of such curses." Aisha was stunned. "What are you saying, Ibrahim? Who will bear it now?" Ibrahim stepped forward, his face solemn. I will. Aisha was speechless. You? But why? Why would you do that? I have my reasons, Ibrahim said. I knew what I was getting into when I agreed to come here. But know this, the curse cannot be destroyed, only transferred, and now it is mine to bear. Aisha wanted to argue, to protest, but the realization hit her like a wave. Ibrahim had taken on her burden willingly. He had saved her not just from a life of shame, but also from the darkness that her family had carried for generations. Days turned into weeks, and the kingdom of Adara thrived once more. But whispers began to circulate about Ibrahim. Though he had taken on the role of royal consort, something was off. It was said that at night strange noises could be heard from his chambers, rumbling, shaking sounds that seemed to echo through the palace. One night, Aisha decided to investigate. She crept to Ibrahim's quarters, and as she approached, the unmistakable sound of a loud, thundering fart reverberated through the hallway. The stench that followed was all too familiar. Ibrahim had taken on her curse, just as he had promised. But there was something wrong. As Aisha opened the door, she found not just Ibrahim sitting in the room, but a figure from her past, Baba Goni. The old healer stood with his crooked staff, a knowing smile on his face. I told you, princess, Baba Goni said, that the curse runs deep, but there is one more truth you must know. What is it? Aisha demanded. Baba Goni's eyes gleamed in the dim light. The curse will continue to live on in your bloodline. It may skip a generation, or it may return sooner than you think. But mark my words, Aisha, the curse is never truly gone. Aisha stood there, frozen in place, as the weight of his words settled over her. The curse may have left her, but it would always be a shadow looming over her family's future. Aisha couldn't shake Baba Goni's chilling words. The thought of the curse haunting her future children filled her with dread. But as the days passed, something inside her stirred, a quiet defiance against the inevitability of her family's curse. She refused to accept that her bloodline would forever be doomed. Late one night, restless and determined, Aisha decided to confront Baba Goni again. She found him at the outskirts of the kingdom, deep in the forest, where his small, crooked hut stood hidden among ancient trees. The air was heavy, with a strange stillness as she stepped inside. You said the curse would never be broken, Aisha began, her voice firm. But I refuse to believe that. There must be another way. Baba Goni, sitting beside his low fire, chuckled softly, his face half hidden in shadows. Child, I told you before, curses like this cannot be undone. They live on. Aisha's eyes narrowed. But you've never told me the full truth, have you? You haven't told me everything. The old healer's smile faded, his eyes gleaming with something Aisha couldn't quite place. Be careful, princess. Some truths are better left hidden. Undeterred, Aisha pressed on. Tell me what you are hiding. You know more about the curse than you've let on. Baba Goni sighed deeply, staring into the fire as if remembering something long buried. There is one thing, he admitted reluctantly. The curse was not originally meant to last forever. It was tied to something, an object, a relic from the past. As long as that relic exists, the curse lives on. Aisha's heart raced. What relic? What is it? Baba Goni hesitated, his voice dropping to a near whisper. A talisman, hidden deep in the mountains. It was created by your ancestors when they made their dark bargain. The talisman carries the essence of the curse. If it is destroyed, the curse will be broken permanently. Aisha stood still, absorbing the enormity of his words. And why didn't you tell me this before? Baba Goni's eyes darkened. Because destroying the talisman is no simple task. It is guided by powerful spirits. Anyone who seeks it risks being consumed by them. Aisha, undeterred by the danger, set her jaw in determination. Then I will find it. I will end this curse once and for all. With the knowledge of the talisman in hand, Aisha set out on a perilous journey. She took only Halima with her, as the path ahead was fraught with danger. The two women traveled through dense forests, climbed treacherous cliffs, and crossed vast plains to reach the hidden mountains where the talisman was said to be buried. Days passed, and as they neared the peak, strange things began to happen. Whispers carried by the winds filled their ears, and shadows moved unnaturally through the trees. Aisha could feel the presence of the spirits guarding the relic. She knew they were close. As the mountain's summit, they found an ancient cave, its entrance lined with strange markings and symbols. Inside, the air was thick with an otherworldly presence, and there, in the heart of the cave, stood the talisman, a small hard stone glowing faintly with a dark energy. Just as Aisha reached for the talisman, the spirits appeared, ghostly figures swirling around them, their voices filled with anger and despair. "You cannot destroy what was created by blood," one of them hissed. "You are bound to this curse, as are your children and their children after them." But Aisha stood her ground. "I refuse to live under the shadow of a curse my ancestors brought upon us. It ends with me." The spirit howled, but Aisha, with unwavering determination, lifted the talisman and threw it to the ground with all her strength. It shattered into pieces, sending a shock wave of energy through the cave. For a moment, the air grew still. The spirits screeched in agony, their forms twisting and dissipating into nothingness. The curse, bound to the talisman, was broken. Aisha collapsed to the ground, exhausted but triumphant. The curse that had plagued her family for generations was finally gone. When Aisha returned to Adara, the change was immediate. The heavy, oppressive atmosphere that had hung over the palace for so long was lifted. The people no longer whispered in fear, and for the first time in her life, Aisha felt truly free. Ibrahim, who had been silently carrying the burden of the curse, felt the change within him as well. The strange noises, the discomfort, and the sense of being watched all disappeared. He knew that Aisha had succeeded. Even Baba Goni, who had doubted that the curse could ever be broken, visited the palace once more, his expression a mix of surprise and awe. "You have done what I believed was impossible," he said quietly to Aisha. "You have broken the chains of your family's past." Aisha smiled, her heart light with relief. No curse can last forever if you fight hard enough to end it.